That, of course, was Martin Luther's "A Mighty Fortress Is Our God." And if my church is anything like yours, that's probably how Reformation Sunday started for you. Welcome to Presbyterian in Reformed Texas, a new podcast focused on the P&R life, Presbyterian and Reformed churches in the great state of Texas. I'm your host, Eric Wallace. Today we're joined by the senior pastor of Lakewood Presbyterian Church in Dallas, Texas, Brad Denton.
Welcome. That may be too much credit. I don't know if you get to be a senior if you don't have an associate. But there we are.
There we are. No assistants either, correct?
I have an intern. So
you do have an intern.
I do.
Awesome.
I do have an intern, and both of us have day jobs. So
very good.
Well, he has a day job, and I have a side job. So
right. So you are technically bivocational.
I'll try anything. Try vocational, I guess. Well, 3/4 time is really probably closest, but yeah. I work at this as much as my wife will let me.
Very good.
In addition to the bit that the little maintenance that I have to do on the side. So
yep. Very good. Well, very good. Well, welcome today.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about yourself. I mean, you and I came to know each other, I guess, really through probably more Presbylandia, as I like to call it, the world that revolves around Brad Chortles Weekly's podcast, Presbycast. And we're in the same presbytery together. So we had 2 points of contact with one another. And a mutual friend of ours got us together for lunch one day. And it's been friends since then, right?
We've been friends ever since. I think the first time we actually met IRL, as they say, we were at a presbytery meeting, and you were walking up to the mic, if I'm not mistaken, and you were one of the dissenting voices, and as the other Brad likes to say, we again it. So
that's right. That is right. Yeah, that was one of the few votes. The do-over votes. I guess that was probably the original, though, in the end of 21, the first time we took up the amendments from St. Louis with the BCO.
I think that's what right. It was.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Very good.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I can tell you a little bit about me, since that's what you asked. So I've been a Dallas native, and it's been by the Lord's blessing that after I graduated RTS with my Master of Divinity last summer, that I've been able to stay. And that was a boon to me, because I did not want to go through licensure again if I could help it. Since I'd already done that in the North Texas Presbytery, and by God's grace, he opened up a pulpit for me here locally, which is not too far away from where I grew up here in Dallas. So it's kind of a fortuitous relationship for Lakewood and I. I had driven by Lakewood dozens of times in my adulthood, and many times driving by it, looking at it being a historic building and thinking, well, that must be a PCUSA church. Well, it was at one point, but they were one of the earliest members in I don't know the history of the North Texas Presbytery far back enough to know what other churches it would have been at the Presbytery at that time, or if it was even the North Texas Presbytery. But I think it was in 74, 75 that Lakewood joined. And they've been around since
the early churches, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And they were established in 1955. Okay. So if there's an older church in our presbytery, I don't know what it is. So I've been very blessed to be there for a year. Like I said, I've grown up here. Before being ordained to the gospel ministry, I was in information technology. I owned a small business doing managed services and putting the Cisco networking training that I had for many years worked at to use. So I've pretty much been my whole life in Dallas. I graduated from University of Texas at Dallas with a master's. With a business administration. My major was in business administration, and then in 2022 I got my MDiv here at RTS Dallas. So can't seem to
Excellent.
get out of the Metroplex, as hot as it is. But I was thankful in 2019 to have Karina come from a much nicer climate from Southern California, from Los Angeles, to come be here. And I can tell you, the weather's not her favorite thing about it. But
I am sure.
we have a 2-year-old named Daniel. He was a pandemic baby. I hate to pigeonhole him in that way.
Right.
But, something about his behavior speaks to the circumstances of the year 2020, because something ain't right with that child. But
there you go.
He's a great kid, and so we're blessed. So
we're
wonderful. Blessed to know you as well.
That is wonderful. Yeah, and I was honored to serve as part of the commission for your ordination and installation back August of 22. That was a really sweet night. Surrounded with a number of godly men to be there, support you, and to be a part of that. And that was, honestly, I think, it's kind of sad to say, but the first evening service I had been to since coming to the PCA.
Is that right?
I believe it was. And that I have a deep desire to see evening services grow. I think it's a tremendous blessing to the church and to us as individuals. We're certainly swimming against the culture here in North Texas, and probably everywhere in the United States, trying to have an evening service. I know I was able to help the brothers that have been doing the survey across the PCA. And I'd done some research on North Texas for them at the time. There were 5, including your church, Lakewood. Now we've added 2 more, so we're up to 7 churches in the North Texas Presbytery having evening service, which, it's encouraging, but we would love to see more, and I would love to see my own church at some point have that as well. So
the more the better, for sure, because given that the DFW Metroplex is such a commuter culture where, and, I've referenced this frequently, Carl Trueman's quip that the Model T was probably the singular event that changed church history more than any other, given that now people can treat the church experience as a consumer. And so if you don't like the church that you're going to, you can drive 20 miles, 30 miles away to get what you want. I know some people in our Metroplex will drive up to 40 miles because they want to be at a church that meets their particulars. And so that can be good in the sense that as Presbyterians, we have our particulars and we like them. But in the other sense, it does make it difficult for those people to attend evening worship if they're driving, 20, 30, 40, miles. We're not in the parish mindset anymore where,
that's right.
You went to the pastor that was closest to you, that was your pastor, and the saints that lived nearest to you, those are your brothers and sisters. And, if you don't like the way he preaches, you better pray for him, because your options are limited in that regard. And if you have a problem with your friends in the local parish, your brothers and sisters, then you better pray for them too. Well, you better, or repent and, right. And get those relationships right, because those are your people, whether you like them or not. And so it puts us in a difficult situation, because as elders and sessions or officers and volunteers are thinking about the viability of having evening worship, which, you and I would like to think it should always be viable. Certain practical questions arise that we wish weren't the case, in terms of nap times for little ones, and and length of drive, and so to speak, even on Sunday when there's relatively little traffic. So, yep. And lots of churches, I know that our cousins in the RPCNA, brothers, I think it's Rom over there at Dallas RPCNA, they do the format with a service, and then a lunch, and then a service.
Right.
So there's no need to leave and then come back. So you don't lose people in that way, but then there are other practicalities that create issues for people in that scenario as well. So they can be worked around with dedication for sure. But yeah, I think evening worship's definitely a boon, and the more churches that would adopt it, I used to go to Redeemer, for instance, when I was at Mercy, because Mercy didn't have an evening service. Redeemer was still a 35-minute drive, and we'd both have friends over there. And even their evening service is 4 years old, I think. Mm-hmm. But the more churches that start doing it, the easier it is, I guess, on the whole community, and the more that we can, and it really is, it really is. It has to be a labor of love for that church, because it starts in seed form with very few people. I know Redeemers started as a prayer meeting, and then once attendance got to there was a good nucleus of people gathering at the facility, they said, all right, this is now going to be a service. I'm not sure how Donnie over there at Lakeside and South Lake handled it, but they were doing youth group in the evening on Sunday evenings. Right. Lakewood has had one, I think, for the last 4 or 5 years. So they were doing it well before I got there. But that was one of my main attractions. I wanted to serve at a church that, Lord willing, that had evening worship. Mm-hmm. So that was a real blessing for us.
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt. And let's be honest. I mean, if we ever hope to truly honor the Sabbath and keep it holy, we probably need to start with us taking church more seriously, and giving people another opportunity to gather on the Lord's Day. I mean, we've talked about it already. I mean, the culture here in North Texas certainly revolves around the Cowboys this time of year and their game on each Lord's Day. And if it's not the Cowboys, right, there's plenty of other NFL games on that. 30% of probably all TVs in the Metroplex are watching football Sunday. Mm-hmm. And if we hope to make a dent in that, I think we need to give people good things to do that honor the Lord.
Yeah, and I always cringe when I hear stories about pastors, certainly not in the PCA, hopefully, but or any other Reformed denomination, who say things like, "Well, I'm going to try to get you all out of here in time to see the game," right? And it's just, so what are our priorities? What does that communicate? Yep. And it really does do something for the mindset. John Muther used to speak to us in terms of plausibility structures, meaning the Christian faith is undergirded by a plausibility structure, in the sense that the way that we live is demonstrably distinct from the way that even other conservative Christians sadly live. And having the Sabbath, whether you're doing it, whether you do the lunch service model, or whether you actually have the break for lunch and go home and then come back model, which works, I think, better for us in our context for a number of reasons. Whatever the case is, it helps you to consecrate the Lord's Day as holy. And it bookends for us, having, our day starts at 8:30 now. And once we get back to evening worship after this little hiatus that we're on due to technical difficulties, we'll probably end our day at around 7:00. Mm-hmm. Now, we're not there the whole day, but for the most part, you get a chance to give large chunks of the day on the beginning and on the tail end to the Lord. So it changes the way that you think about time. It changes the way that you think about commitment, and it changes and it really does commend something different to our families. Mm-hmm. than just let's get our religious injection, our 1 hour religious injection or therapy for the week, and then we're off to our real sacraments. We're off to our real liturgy, right?
That's right. I couldn't help but think, when you mentioned the minister saying, I hope to get you out in time for the game or something like that. I mean, I grew up in St. Louis, grew up the Catholic Church, and I can't tell you how many times we heard something like that in regards to, we will, we will minimize this mass, get as short as possible to get you out of here for the game. Or we would purposely go to a certain service to get home for the game.
Yeah. Yeah. And we're already talking about church services that last an hour for the most part. And, our services usually run about 80 to 90 minutes.
Okay.
That's so in the morning, and then usually in the evening as well. So we spend several hours a day, every Sunday in the presence of God. So
that is wonderful.
And that's for folks who, and we like, I mean, we don't want, it's not a sinful pride that we've taken it, I hope, but we did have just a couple of visitors just this last week who I think they'd moved from California. They were part of an OPC church out there. And one of the comments that he made to me during the week when I touched base with him was that they were looking for a church that set apart the Lord's Day as holy. And so that was encouraging for me to hear. So you always, but we would like to create conditions in which people with that lamentation I hear it as a lamentation writ large, because we would hope that, like I was saying, there'd be conditions in which that's no longer the case, conditions in which the Lord's Day would be more set apart.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Broadly speaking. So,
yeah. Well, tell us a little bit about Lakewood. Tell us about your church. I mean, you mentioned, it's one of the older churches in the PCA community in North Texas. So one of the things I noticed when we were there for your ordination was just the number of young families, which, you think of old church, young families, they don't necessarily go together. So tell us a little bit about your community.
So one of the great things about Lakewood, there are a number of families that have been there for a long time. I can think of a couple families in particular that have granddad, son, and kids. So 3 generations
of believers.
Yeah. It's multi-generational, not just in the sense that we have older saints and younger saints all the way, the whole scope and breadth, but we have older and younger saints of the same bloodline. So right. It really is the God's covenant mercy at work, demonstrated through the faithful nurture and admonition of the Lord, of the parent to the child, through several generations. So there are a number of young families. We have so many babies. It's just a glad thing. I'll be baptizing several more here in the coming weeks, including a set of twins. So
wonderful.
Yeah. And I think the Christian school, and I'll just kind of segue into the broader question about Lakewood generally. Lakewood is an old neighborhood in East Dallas. It is, you could say the demographics, we are right there on the a demographic border, you could say. And, we don't have to get into this too deeply, but you know how Dallas is. Once you get closer to downtown, once you get closer to I-30, which for your listeners is the east-west interstate that effectively bifurcates the whole Metroplex into north and south. Right. Most of the growth here in the Metroplex is north, and some of it is starting to head east, but we're right there in the middle. So it's an old established neighborhood. It is probably one of the more affluent neighborhoods, and it is also one of the more progressive neighborhoods. Mm-hmm. We don't enjoy a lot of the refugees coming from California that have just kind of set up that will just reestablish themselves. Probably you just see more northward growth, right? Right. In areas like Prosper and even McKinney. Mm-hmm. So we have a tougher road to hoe in that sense, and that we will have to do some evangelism is going to be more our lot, and I'm thankful for that, because we have guys that are good at it, that are gung ho to see people won to the knowledge of Christ. But as far as the neighborhood and the church, I'm thankful actually that the former pastor who served us for 38 years, a wonderful, godly man who established a Christian school. And so we are able to proudly proclaim that we've been doing classical schooling for 30 years. We are a member of the Association of Classical Christian Schools and have a student body of about, I think, 115, 120, all the way from kindergarten through 12th. So and the families that that are not involved with that are members of the church, homeschool their kids. So we're kind of in that mindset. It was a good thing several years ago that a family of some means was able to build a gym on the property for the use by the school and also the local community. So we have that as an asset as well. So it's a mid-modern building, mid-century modern, and we're trying to keep it up, trying to make some, I guess, tasteful updates, so to speak, without eschewing the real character of the building. That's one of the things. People walk into the sanctuary and they think, wow, it looks old, right? It is a historic church. So
it is. Yeah.
So
wonderful.
But it's a great neighborhood. We're right there by White Rock Lake. And so we're working on doing more kind of to I don't want to say to reestablish ourselves as members of the community, so to speak, because we want to present the gospel of the Lord Jesus Christ and see families nearby won into his kingdom.
Sure. Excellent. Well, that is wonderful to hear. Well, you have a conference coming up in November at your church. Tell us a little bit about that.
What can the righteous do? That's the question that's the topic of our fall conference. And we'll be having Joel Beakey speaking on the Puritan experience of adoption, holiness, marriage, and child rearing, especially in the context of societal difficulties that we know that the Puritans faced. Todd Riddell will be asking the question, why do culture clash and persecution, which a word I know a lot of people are allergic to, but when you think about, you can lose your job. You think about, you can if it gets known that you are an evangelical Christian, if you're committed to biblical gender roles or biblical sexual morality, so to speak, then, you'll be coded as low status, so to speak, by the elites in our society. So, how do we engage that faithfully? Ben Dunson, a former editor-in-chief of American Reformer, which is a great publication, by the way, will be speaking on the Rutherford option. So I'm going to leave that one open, but we know that Rutherford kind of operated a network of sorts for ministers, and then also the roles and responsibilities in our present distress. That's the topic that will be addressed by Dr. Pipa when he speaks on Saturday. And there will be a afternoon session as well, November the 17th and the 18th, $10 for the whole 2 days, and you'll get 3 meals. So even if those are speakers you don't like, which is shame on you, come enjoy some hospitality from us. We pray that this will be a kind of a reintroduction, I guess, to the neighborhood for us.
Excellent. So again, we have a wonderful conference, November 17th and 18th. That's a Friday, Saturday, $10, and you get 3 meals and the heritage books
and Reformation heritage books on sale.
Yeah, and their books on sale. This is quite an opportunity. What a wonderful conference. I would encourage all of you.
We're looking forward to it. I mean, our goal is to have as many visitors, have as many guests as we can. This is, as Chris Coldwell, who is the publisher of Naphtali Press, he's worked for a number of years with Dr. Beakey, getting his critical editions of Gillespie, Rutherford, other Puritan writers republished. So, and he works very, very hard on these, and he's worked very, very hard as well to help us put this conference together. And it was his desire that we present something affordable that, that people can come to and hopefully get some insight as to what we're looking at these next several years as Bible-believing Reformed Christians trying to live faithfully in the present distress.
Well, wonderful. Well, we'll have all the details and a link in the show notes. That is again, just a wonderful sounding conference, and I look forward to it. I definitely will be there Friday. I hope to be there Saturday as well. But since it's my wife's birthday, we will see how much we can get in of 2 days that weekend.
We'll let you walk away with a to-go box as well.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Yes. They normally don't let you do that. I mean, during happy hour type, good deals, you have to eat there. But
That's right. That is right.
We'll let you walk away with some.
Well, very good. Well, Brad, it's been a pleasure having you with us this evening. But before we go, one thing I'd like to do is something we've been trying to do with all of our guests. Is one way of getting to know you a little better is give us a good recommendation or two. Anything that you think would be of value to our listeners in Texas, Presbyterian Reformed church men and women. What would be a good recommendation for us?
As far as books to read, I have two here on my shelf. Now, you asked me this earlier, and it's good that I didn't think about it between now and then, because I would have spent most of the afternoon thinking about trying to narrow it down to two.
That's right.
But there were two really good pieces that I picked up while I was at the General Assembly. One of them is Herman Bobink's Essays on Religion, Science, and Society, which kind of dovetails a little bit with the theme of our conference. That's been something I know a lot of us have been thinking about, especially with the larger discussions on Christian nationalism, whether that's a term that you like or don't like. It's been kind of a hot topic of discussion. The other book was a book that Arnie Robertstad, our former pastor, and he who actually, by the way, we didn't get to talk about this, but he put together this, which is the Psalter of Lakewood Presbyterian Church. That was one of the other aspects of the church that really drew me to it. It also was co-published with Chris at Naphtali Press. So this is this was his lasting contribution to our church.
Well, that is wonderful.
Yeah, so we have our own Psalter. That's been something that struck a lot of people.
Is that the Lakewood Psalter, or is that the name of it? Or
yes, the light is not really.
Yeah,
you get to see just how pasty I am. But this says
very good.
The Psalter of Lakewood Presbyterian Church. So this also was a labor of love for them. But the second book I was going to recommend was this one, Pierre. I don't know how you actually pronounce it. Courtial. It's got a foreword by Doug Kelly, who, if you are familiar with the Southern Presbyterian, the 20th century Southern Presbyterians, then he's one of the more renowned ones, a teacher at RTS who I'm told speaks some 5 or 6 languages fluently. It's published on Zurich Press, but it's a very covenantal presentation of God's plan for human history, and that's it's printed on very, very thick stock. So that's something. This is again on Zurich Publishing. It's a very boutique work, but that's one that I would suggest everybody pick up if you can. So
good deal. I know Matt Adams can't drop Doug Kelly's name enough on the Larger for Life podcast, so I'll check that out.
Well, he has left a lot to the church. I mean, I've also got his 3-volume systematic here on my shelf, but it's further down. But those two titles, something old in Bobink and something new in this in cordial, in trying to approach the world with a Christian world and life view. I know a lot of us are probably tired of the word worldview because we're not all philosophers, but how to think as Christians in a way that not only facilitates Christian behavior, but also will have an impact on an insane world, a world that seems to be growing more and more. One of my real focuses for ministry is just an evidence-based, so to speak, way of life, in the sense that you see families still together after generations, being faithful to the Lord, faithful at their jobs. And just that alone is a testimony in the face of so much of the depravity that we see in our day, with relationships that don't work, institutions that are failing left and right, caving under the prevailing wisdom of the age, which is folly in God's sight. So that's in trying to think about how to engage those issues. I've found these two books particularly helpful. Yeah.
Well, Brad, is there anything else you'd like to share this evening before I let you go here?
I've enjoyed being on it. You have been a great compatriot in the presbytery, and I look forward to co-laboring with you for many years in the future.
Amen. I say the same to you, Brad. I pray this conference would be successful, and you guys would see the benefits that you've seeking from it to help replant your church there in Lakewood, and just bring some awareness to the church there in your local community. And I pray for the fruit of your gospel ministries there, that you would see more people come to faith through your work, Brad. And pray that you would be encouraged in the Lord, that he would bring fruits for your labor.
Amen. Thank you, my friend. Same to you. And God's blessing, may it rest upon Trinity and all the saints in Plano as well.
Thank you, sir. Well, with that said, have a great night, folks.